Mom kind of stole a little bit of my thunder. It's okay, I had a little intro, but that's good. We can skip right past that. You did good.
We got plenty of words to say.
Yeah,
so you taking some of our words is going to hurt.
No, but when I started thinking about how I wanted to talk about my story, and this is the first time I've talked about this publicly, so I feel like it's very appropriate that it's here with my family and my family church where I grew up. And if it was my perfect world, y'all would all be sitting in my living room. I'd be in my pajamas, probably no bra, blanket on my lap, and we would just be chatting about this. So that's kind of what we're going to do.
So you just set the mood for us.
So just pretend like that.
And we would have snacks. We would definitely have snacks.
Yes. So Mom was talking about Wes, and Sarah's dad, who's the pastor of our church, actually set us up in 2011.
It's been a few years.
You can tell that story.
Yeah, Kelly moved, I guess, to Augusta 10 years ago. And so that's when our friendship began. And so we were both single girls right out of college, kind of figuring out what life looked like after college. And so I worked at the church. I was a children's pastor at the time. And I went into work one day, and I was just having a hard day that day. And Wes Hennings was mean to me, okay? He did not give me any slack for having a bad day. And so I was complaining to, Kelly came over to my house that evening because I had a hard day. My dad stopped by to check on me. And I was complaining about Wesley Don Hennings. And Dad said, oh, he just needs a woman. And so, wait, you were not at the house then, were you? We were talking about you. And so, me and my friend Emily were like, we've got a friend that needs a man. And so, my dad pulled out his phone and texted both of them and said, I've got the perfect person for you. I'm going to set you up on a date. The only problem was he had your wrong phone number.
Yeah, he just said somebody
so he didn't actually text Kelly. So Wes is getting excited. He's like, oh yeah, this is good. You know, and he's trying to vibe with Kelly. And she's like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. So we got set up in 2011. Quickly, we got married in 2012. We were like, let's lock this down. Because he really is my best friend. He is just the perfect person for me. We've just passed 7 years married. So, he's not here today. He's home with the girls.
Yeah, and I have come to terms with working with him. So, Wes, if you're watching this one day, you're a delight to work with. And so, you guys got married, and what did your life look like as newlyweds?
Yeah, so we bought a house. We, did all the things. We were traveling. We knew we wanted to start a family. We kind of just stopped preventing, and
we learned last night that you never really stopped. Words we live on.
So got pregnant with Graham. Everything pregnancy-wise was fine.
Wait, let me back up. So you're not preventing,
right?
And did you maybe potentially discuss this with your girlfriend?
So some of the members of Squad. There's 7 of us. And so we were all talking about, when we were going to have a kid, when, we're all kind of in the same phase of life. And so we all said, okay, this fall, that's what we're doing. Everybody started trying. And 5 of us did.
We actually did a pregnancy pack and we followed through.
Like in 6 months, maybe? 6 months, we had 5.
Span.
Yeah. So there was a little group of 5 babies, and Graham was right in the middle or second to oldest.
Yeah.
There was 3 after him. And so, so everything's fine, new mom, pregnancy's fine, nothing crazy.
Kelly, as a pregnant person,
that wasn't fun.
I mean, she
just the normal,
just normal, it wasn't fun, you could say,
The morning sickness really bad, on bed rest toward the end, I had an emergency C-section, stuff like that, but nothing like out of the ordinary.
Right, just not fun.
Yeah. just
But
like-
then baby Graham popped out, and he was the most precious, easygoing baby you'd ever meet.
Yes.
And so it was like you had earned it.
Exactly. You won't pay for it on one end or the other. Either you're gonna have a hard pregnancy or you're gonna have a hard baby. Either one.
Yeah.
So
That's how you lucked out.
so he looked exactly like Wes, had blonde hair, blue eyes. Everything was fine. I went back to work, just going about life really.
Who is a baby doll, a complete baby doll.
Yes, so happy.
So I remember getting a phone call from you on his 6-month checkup. And so tell me about that phone call.
So we had gone to the doctor's office for just a routine checkup. I had some concerns, but nothing like that I felt like I needed to go before the regular checkup. He had started, he still hadn't rolled over yet, but he was kind of chunky. He also, right before that appointment, it had trouble holding his head up again. Or, you know, it seemed like he used to be able to, and now he's having a lot more trouble. So as soon as our doctor walked in, he just looked at him and was like, "You have to go to the hospital right now." And we were just blown away. Like, we had no clue, out of the blue. Is that the phone call you're talking about? That one. And all he told us at that time was that he had pneumonia. And so even still, we were just kind of like, okay, well, he has pneumonia, we're going to the hospital, he's a baby, they need to do stuff, it'll be fine. So we get there, and on the board, they have all the people who are going to come see you and all the specialties, and one of them was neurology. And I just kept looking at it like, why? Like, why do we have neurology come in? I was trying to put all the pieces together, being like, somewhat in the medical field and in the therapy field of what do all these things mean together, like why is this happening? Because at that point we had no idea what was coming, really. And so that night that first night we were in the hospital, Wes went home to like pack a bag and stuff, and our pediatrician walked in the door from that morning. And so I was like, oh, this is so sweet. He's coming to visit, like, this is so nice. And that was the first time that he said, I know that one of the things on their short list is a thing called SMA, which I'd never heard of, had no idea what that was. And I was thinking, okay, I need to read those letters so I can Google this, like, yada, yada. And I think that night is when he said, fatal before age 2. So I called.
And so Kelly heard all of that all by yourself in that room.
Yes.
I remember you called me, and you're telling me this summary, and you're like, and I haven't seen Wes. I haven't told him.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how did you do that?
Yeah, so he came in, and I think he knew, because he had texted me and was like, where's your makeup bag or something? And I was like, forget the bag, get back here right now. And so he knew that something was up. So he came back in, and he knew, like, he was braced for what I was going to say. But at that point, it was just on the short list, so we didn't really know yet. So I told him, I was like, they don't know, but this is what they're saying, this is what I said. And so I think it was a Wednesday night, and so everybody was at church, so I think we called, and some of our pastors and things came up and talked with us. And then the next day, they did some tests, and it was pretty much confirmed. You have to do a blood test, but there's other things they can do that just rule out everything else. And so they told us the next day.
So I remember that day. I believe I was up there at the hospital, and I'm thinking it was probably before your family had time to get there. And I was standing outside your hospital door when the doctor came in. And she was like a petite lady, right? She came in, so I stepped right out, and I didn't hear her talk. She had her back to the door. But all of a sudden, I heard y'all's reactions. So I knew what she was telling you.
Yes.
And so I'm standing outside the door, and I'm hearing Kelly process. Just her heart was broken and emotional and kind of crying out. And then I hear Wes.
Yeah, so we said, I had not left that room since we had first got there, and I was like, I have to get out of here. So we went to this little like rooftop area where it's
Well,
like
before
outside.
that, Wes grabbed Kelly, and
I think he said this outside.
he said, I heard it. I heard because I was just so overwhelmed from your emotion, because Kelly's emotions were raw in that moment. And Wes said, this is not taking our marriage. And he grabbed her hand and they walked past me out the doors. And so that's what y'all
That's what he
did.
said. He was like, the first thing that he said, which was, I had not even like got to that point. I couldn't really even think about anything, but that was the first thing he said was, this is not going to break us. We are not going to lose each other. Like, we're going to be a team, and we're going to get through it. So, and we really did. I mean, I can see how
Statistics for families with special needs.
and losing a
Yeah.
child, like I can see how
Not good.
it's so hard. But I mean, the Lord just really helped us through it. Well, I mean, obviously it wasn't always easy and it wasn't always pretty, but yeah, he claimed that early on, and the Lord was faithful.
So from that moment, I mean, it's amazing how to watch like, people come together. You know, we had, like she mentioned, there was a pregnancy pack with 5 of us girls, but we all had babies. And it's like you just figure out how to show up for your people, you know. So through that, like you experienced an outpouring of love and generosity from people around you.
We did. I mean, it is really, it was such a dark time, but feeling so much love and prayer from everybody, people I didn't even know. I know Arbor sold bracelets, and I swear for a year, every time I saw Kathy Gordon, she handed me $200 because from bracelet sales. And so I feel like there was so much and everything was crazy. I never got to really like thank everybody. I know that's not, expected, I guess.
It was so much.
It was so much. Like
Y'all probably didn't buy diapers.
we didn't
Ever.
buy diapers. People, one day an Amazon pantry box came to my door. No name, I don't know who, still to this day don't know, sent laundry detergent, food, baby stuff, like all kind of things. We had people, just always got cards in the mail with checks in them, just all kinds of things. Hold on, I wrote it down.
And at this point, Kelly, she's a speech therapist at a place, so she's essentially a contract. Like if she doesn't work, she's not making money. And at that season, you had decided to be stay at home and take care of Graham and be
Yes.
Graham's primary caregiver.
Yes, somebody had to be there to be the person. There's so much going on. He came home with a feeding tube, a vent, suction, a cough assist, a pulse ox, extra oxygen if needed, like a mini ICU basically. So somebody had to be the one person that knew all of this stuff and that could know his baseline and when things were looking funky, if we needed to do something else. People also came and helped us make changes to our house because we had a stroller, but then we also, he had to have a special wheelchair, it had to be flapped, changing his bed, how it needed to go, so many things. Obviously we had meals, people sent us gift cards, everything that you could think of.
I remember I scheduled a cleaner to come to our house every week because he heard Graham, his immune system was so sensitive. So I'm like, for the cleaner, you're not going to bring any germs into this house, and you're going to get all the germs out of it every week. But people would come out of the woodwork to pay for your cleaner.
Oh yeah, we had a cleaner for a while. So let me back up. What is SMA? So SMA stands for spinal muscular atrophy. And if you ever know anybody that's had ALS in adults, it's kind of like that, but in babies, and much faster, and I would say much worse, but ALS is pretty bad too. So it, there's just,
It progresses.
it progresses a lot faster. So it is a genetic disorder. So both Wes and I are carriers for this disease, and everybody in here is a recessive carrier to like 3 or 4 genetic disorders. And you'll never know because it's not showing up in you. But when you get married, if the person you marry, their 3 or 4 things match with one of yours, then you have a 25% chance of your kid being affected with that. So obviously we didn't know, most people don't. And so any biological kids we have from here on out would have a 25% chance of having SMA also. There's different types. There's type 0 to type 3, where at 0, basically, as soon as you're born, you need help to breathe. Symptoms are showing right then. And then as the types go up, it's basically when the symptoms start. So his started about 6 months, which is type 1, which is very aggressive. If you don't know, if you're type 0, you kind of know beforehand. So the worst of the ones that we could have hoped for, I guess. So what it does is your muscles just weaken and weaken and weaken and weaken until you can't cough. And so think about when you're sick and you have a lot of junk in your throat, if you can't cough that out, then a cold is deadly. So that's what she's talking about, immune system, is anytime he had a cold, we were in the ICU. So keeping everything clean and germ-free was like priority number 1.
So this started your season of being his primary caregiver, and you immediately became an expert in all of these things, in suction and breathing and his levels, and yet here's Graham with his blonde locks, and he still as happy as can be, enjoying life.
Yeah.
So the days weren't all labored over keeping him up.
No. So I got to stay home. We had nursing that came in and out to help with some of the stuff.
Tell us about Graham.
So he loved Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. That's basically what we watched for 10 months. He couldn't, dance, but when the hot dogs all came off, the little bit that he could do.
You guys, he had this, I guess it was Wes's dad, right? Who built this kind of PVC pipe. It was a stand that could go right over Graham, and Graham could lay there, and they propped up an iPad or a tablet so he could watch.
So it was like
Mickey
straight
Mouse.
up, so you didn't have to sit up or look.
So when she says she watched that for 10 months.
That is what
I
we
know.
did, yes. Because it's hard for him to play with other toys and stuff like that, but he loved that.
And he still had a personality, and I feel like he gave me the side eye anytime you tried to move that TV or turn the volume down, or he'd be looking over at you like, "What you doing?"
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and if sometimes a different show would come on, Disney Junior has it out for you, and sometimes it'll just change the show. And so if it turned off that, man, he got mad, just start screaming to come put that Mickey back on. So that was a sweet time. It was a really hard time, but I'm so grateful. All the donations and things that people help us with
Took the pressure off.
allowed me to stay home for those 10 months and not have to worry.
So in those 10 months, how many times, How many times did y'all go for an overnight stay in the hospital?
I don't know how many times, but I know in 10 months we were there cumulatively for a month of that. So, you know, some nights it was just one night. Sometimes it was probably like 2 weeks was probably the longest, week and a half. So yeah, it just really depended. Anytime he got any little thing, he had coronavirus one time, different strand. But we know it. So we were there for that, and that was really hard. You know, hospital life is not fun. But we had people helping, taking care of us.
And so 10 months battling this cruel disease, and we celebrated his life in August. So you were diagnosed in October, and we celebrated his life in August.
Yes, and so that was obviously a really hard time. It's difficult when you have a child and then you don't. It's just back to you two again.
Because you are a mother.
Right. But my arms felt empty, and my house was clean. All the nurses and everybody that we had relationships with were gone.
You had equipment in your house, and
Yeah, we had to figure out what to do with all of his medical equipment, who could best use it. We had a lot of breast milk that was donated. We had to figure out where to, there was a lot of stuff to figure out where it needed to go. And a lot of people helped us with that too. So what I learned from from that time is what people need when they're grieving and how you can help people when they're grieving. And what you want to do is anything practical. If you're close enough to them, just do it. Don't even ask them. Like, hey, I'm picking up your kid from school today. Don't worry about it. Stay home. Or, you know, hey, I'm bringing some groceries over. I made too much of this lasagna. I'm going to bring you some dinner. Or whatever. And I will say, it's really hard when you're in that space to ask for something, not because you think that people aren't going to do it, but you just do not have the mind capacity to say, this is my problem, this is the person that can help fix this, let me call them, let me set this up. So if you ever say you're going to do something, make sure you do it. Because that person is counting on you, and they do not have the energy to figure out a plan B to do that. So I'll write down some other things. What you can do. Don't be afraid to say the loved one's name. You can talk about them. You can say their name. We went with another member of Pizza Squad out to eat right after Grand passed away, probably a month or two. And she has a daughter, June, who was probably 5 at the time. And, you know, loved baby Graham, remembered him being born, was just his little baby doll. And she just randomly said during dinner, "I'm sorry Graham died." And I was like, "Thank you, June." And Brittany, her mom, was just, "Oh my God, I cannot believe she said that. I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." She took June to the side and she was like, "We do not need to say that," and blah, blah. And June says, "Why? They're already sad." And I was like, exactly. Like, we already think about him. It's not that, like, you saying it is bringing something up that we have pushed to the side. Like, it's always there. And a big fear, especially with kids, is that people will forget. And so hearing their name or talking about it or asking about it, it's okay. And they may cry, but it's okay. You know, the wounds are still fresh, and, you know, that's all right. But we would rather you ask than just think, "Oh, I just don't want to upset her. It's okay. I'm not saying anything." So, yeah, and sometimes you just need to sit and cry with them. and that's okay too.
We
Sometimes
did
there's
learn that.
nothing else to do, everything's done, they don't need you to do anything else, they don't need you to fix it, they don't need you to tell them, you know, not a scripture, but they don't need to tell you like, oh, well, everything happens for a reason or whatever. Just sit and be sad. That's okay too. You know, just kind of share in that sadness.
And so you and Wes, you processed grief together. You learned now what it's like to be mom and dad without a child that you're caring for every day. So where did that leave you guys in your family plan?
So, right before Graham passed away, actually, we had talked about what our plans were for having another child. I was completely against having another biological child. I felt like I had been blessed to be pregnant. I knew what that felt like. I knew what it was like to give birth and nurse and all those things, and that was a gift, and I was glad I had that experience, but I didn't have, that wasn't necessary for us moving forward. And so Wes took a little convincing on that, but I think he kind of came around too. Another part of it is you can't confirm SMA until you can get an amnio. So for the first 20 weeks, you don't know what's happening. And I was just like, my mental health cannot go through that. Like, there's no way. And so before we even got married, actually, when I was a kid, I always knew that I wanted to adopt. So we even talked about it before we got married. Like, we knew we were going to do it. And I was scared that people would think this was our second choice. Like, oh, we can't get pregnant, so we're going to adopt. Which that's fine too. Like, I just didn't want people to think I had this kid that was messed up and broken, so I want to go get me a good one. You know what I mean? Like, that was what was in my head. But I knew that that wasn't true, and that was the enemy just trying to make me doubt something that the Lord had put on my heart when I was a kid. And so, yeah, so we moved forward. We're probably like 45 minutes in.
I don't even know. I didn't even look at my watch. It's 9:53.
I'm sorry. Okay, so I have a passion for foster care. And so we had known, like Carrie Lee was saying last night, adoption costs for domestic newborns is sinfully astronomical. It should not cost $50,000. That's real. Like, that's like, we know people who've adopted, who have paid that. And I just feel like, whatever, I'm gonna get on that soapbox. That's a sin. That's ridiculous. So, but I will say, if you're pro-life, you're pro-adoption, and every Christian is called to adopt or to fund an adoption. And it costs a ton of money to do most adoptions, but it's so important, and that's what we are called to do. So I felt very passionate about that. But the Lord told me foster care is what we're supposed to. We're going to adopt from foster care. So,
and so how soon after?
In November. So around Thanksgiving is when we told our parents that's what we were going to do. We started the paperwork, did all the classes. I think it took about 6 months to finish it all, and everybody said how fast it went. And I was like, are you kidding me? This is crazy. Anyway, so we went through all of that, and we got to the point where you have to say how many kids, what ages, all that kind of stuff. So we said we would take up to 3 kids, birth to 12, and people fainted. Like, Kathy Gordon probably clutched her pearls and took the biggest gasp I've ever. 12 years old! But I went through all my friends and like, okay, what's the age range of all my friends? So like, I know they'll have somebody their age to like hang out with. And Harrison was 12. Yeah. So I was like, okay, well what's our age range?
These kids need to like, these kids.
Yeah, if there's birth to 12, there's somebody for 20 kids throughout our 7 people. So our 7 people in Pizza Squad, there's 20 kids. So I was like, it'll be fine. So we had a lot of well-meaning people, like Marty, her dad, people that I usually go to for advice and really like respect their opinion. Are like, you really need to think about this. I don't know if you really want to do this. They were concerned about my heart, about what if it fails, can you take another loss, which is valid.
Adoptions aren't a sure thing.
Right, which is valid and I appreciate, but I knew that this is what the Lord had told me to do, and I had never been more sure of anything other than marrying Wes Hennings, that this is what I'm supposed to do. And so we got approved, we went through all the classes, we did everything.
And so with this, you're joining Facebook groups,
Yes.
you're meeting other people who are in the foster process,
Yes,
and
and
your
all
intent
classes.
is to foster care and then
So we
plan
said,
to adopt this.
yeah, so we said we only want kids that are either legally free for adoption or like it's very close, like it's probably gonna happen. So, and I will say, on the foster care soapbox again, very quick, I promise, is there are more churches in a state than there are foster care kids that are legally free for adoption. So if one family, less than one, from every church adopted from foster care, you could wipe out an entire generation of kids that statistically are going to end up on the street, they're going to end up in jail, they're going to end up with their own kids in the system, that you're going to break that cycle for a whole generation reset. So I feel weird talking about that because we did not actually adopt from foster care, but we still plan on doing it, and now that y'all know the whole story, we were 1,000% in this. This is what
Yeah, we
we're
talked
gonna do.
about kids specifically that you believed, you know, could be
Yeah, oh, I
part
was
of your
on the
family.
heart gallery where you can see all the kids that are legally free. I was like picking them out and sending
We were talking
emails
about
to there. I was like, okay, what about this, what about this? Anyway, so we got a Facebook group for adoption from foster care in South Carolina was the group. And so one night, I'm just sitting around, I think it was a Sunday night, I'm just scrolling through and I see a post from a girl named Marissa, and it said basically, hey, I'm 7 weeks pregnant with twins. What's my first step in putting them up for adoption? Like, I don't know what to do. So everybody messaged her in that entire group because it's an adoption group. Like, who's not gonna message her? And so I messaged her, just sent her a paragraph, told her about Graham, all that, and I joke and say, if you're gonna have a sob story, have the worst sob story because it really spoke to her.
It stood out.
Yeah, it stood out. And so she messaged me back. The next day I talked to her on the phone. Wes is like, this is a scam. Like, this is not real.
Any girl do Enneagram, anybody know about Enneagram and personality types? It's the scale of personality, okay? And so Wes has this a little bit conspiracy theory, worst case scenario personality. He's got a little edge of that, and so
Yes.
that's probably.
And I'm a 9, which is everything's fine. Why are you about that? It's cool. So I just kind of mentioned, I was like, hey, I just messaged this girl about adopting her twins. And Wes was like, okay, whatever. Like, like, I don't know why you're telling me this. Like, this is so dumb. So the next day when I talked to her on the phone, Wes was like, okay, now it's real, but it's a scam. Like, this is not happening. I was like, so what if it's a scam? Like, she don't know where we live. We're not going to give her any money. Like, let's just figure out what's going on. So, long story short, it was not a scam. We ended up,
You started, you met her in person.
we met her, I want to say like 3-4 weeks later after we talked on the phone. So we've been talking on the phone a lot, and we met her. I ended up taking her, she doesn't drive, so I ended up taking her to 90% of her doctor's appointments. I was in the room when they told the genders. We met her mom. Really just kind of became a family during that time, and
So this would have been like summertime, like she got pregnant probably early summer.
Yes, so this was like August, I think is when we had the first message.
Okay.
We met her
This is
probably
a year
September. We found the genders in October. Yeah, so this is a year after. In that time, we're still waiting for foster care. And
We're talking about foster care.
you cannot tell me, I would have taken a foster kid during that time if it had become available, but this is why I just say like this was just the Lord, because I know for a fact there was, you can't tell me there was not a sibling group of 3 in that age range in the state of South Carolina that didn't need a placement, but they didn't end up at our house, which is like so unheard of that you're sitting around for 6 months after you're approved
The Lord had
and you don't have any kids in your house. That is like so far crazy, I cannot even tell you. So in that time we were frustrated with that, but then we also had this, and so you know, I was hopeful, and I was becoming close with Marissa, kind of like a sister, like a little sister type relationship, and so I was hopeful that it was going to go through. Wes was still like, I don't know, you know, how this is going to go.
And so come November, y'all had been building this relationship, and all of a sudden, Marissa is nowhere to be found or heard from.
Yes, she blocked me on Facebook. She wouldn't answer any texts, any calls. She had changed her mind. This went for 6 weeks. And so I was upset, but I was also just, okay, I guess this just wasn't the right thing. We hadn't bought anything. We hadn't spent any money. Like, we were, you know, we, in the grand scheme of adoption, had really not lost that much. And so we still kept waiting for foster care. Nothing happened. In that time, Jenny had a baby in September. My sister Lainey had a baby in December when we thought the girls were not going to happen. So I remember when Ella Ruth was born, and we were in the room, like, I think she had already been born, and Katie was there. We were all talking about it. Katie was like, what's the deal with those twins? And I was like, oh, it's not happening. She blocked me on Facebook, like, it's not a thing anymore. And Lainey said, no, I still think those are ours. And I was like, okay, thanks, whatever, you don't know. And so we left, you know, went back home, and I turned onto my street, and I see a text message that's long come through on the way home from the hospital. And I see it's from Marissa, and I kind of see a couple of words. I'm driving. So I was like, Wes, read this, because we had not heard from her.
I love that you're driving West, by the way.
Yeah, I think it was working. I don't know. And so he read it, and he was like, she changed her mind. So we were back on track. Yeah, and so we knew
at that point you're down to like 3 months, 4 months.
Yeah, well, we thought they were due they were due in March.
Okay.
So that's relatively quick to get. So we had a home study for the state, but this was not a state adoption. This was a private adoption. But what the Lord worked out is we did not have to pay $50,000 because we were self-matched. So most of that money is to the agency who's going to find you a birth mom and match you. But we matched ourselves. So we paid under attorney fees, and that was it. And so that is unheard of, to get newborn, infants, you know, whatever, in domestic, like, that is unheard of. Two for the price of one. It was not double, it was one adoption. So, anyway, so we're back on track, we're doing all of that kind of stuff. And then, yeah.
Fast forward to February?
February.
Super Bowl Sunday.
Super Bowl Sunday, I get my phone's blowing up. It's Marissa. I don't even think she had a scheduled C-section yet. We were like 5 weeks away. And she said, my water broke, I'm at the hospital, It's happening, come on. So Wes is in the shower, and I go in and I was like, hey, where's this water broke? We gotta go to the hospital. And he goes, I have to go to work. And I was like, so you're not going to work today. Like, wrap that around and like, get out, let's go. So we go to the hospital. She's there, her mom's there. They, much to my annoyance, I was like, there's 2 babies. They should let 2 people back there. But they would only let one person back there. Marissa wanted her mom, so that was fine. So her mom went back there. We waited in the waiting room. And they rolled them out like less than 5 minutes probably after they were born. And we saw them for the first time, and Pippa was screaming and Hogan was yawning. And so I was just, everything that we had done the last year and a half at that point, since Graham had passed away, was like right there. And I just could not believe it, that like I was laying eyes on them, that like we had been praying for them before we even knew they existed, before we knew this was remotely an option. I thought I was praying for a teenager, and here's 2 babies. And at our baby shower that we had after, Brittany was there, and she said, remember how you told me your arms feel so empty? She's like, now they could not be more full. She's like, you have a baby for each arm. And I was like, yeah, that's true. It's very full.
These babies are a lot of work.
So they were in the NICU for a week. She signed the papers over the next day. In South Carolina, there's no waiting time. Once it's signed, it's done. So
she was gone.
Yeah, she checked out the next day, and we stayed there. And so we talked about a little bit beforehand that we wanted to I really wanted to open adoption. She was not sure what she wanted, if she was able to do that or not. She also lived an hour away from us, so she wasn't in our town, but close enough to where we could see her. She has 2 children of her own too, so for the girls, I wanted them to know where they came from, that they were so loved, and it's not because, she didn't love them, she didn't want them. It was so, so hard for her. I saw the heartbreak on her face the day that we signed everything over. And I just wanted them to know that, and when they have questions, they know who to ask. And it's not a stranger that now they have to go track them down or, talk to them for the first time. Like they know of this person, they know who it is. And so the girls just turned 2, so we're early on, so we're still kind of figuring things out, but we see her, we have a visit, we usually go to a restaurant and eat 2-3 times a year maybe. So yeah.
She came to their birthday.
She came to their first birthday party.
She's Facebook friends with all your friends.
Yes, she's my friend on Facebook, and so she sees, all the pictures and stuff, and a lot of times, she has her own life, her own family, so it's not like we're texting all the time, but we definitely just check in maybe once a month and just thinking about you, love you. We made her something for Mother's Day, stuff like that. So I want her to know, and I tell her all the time, I know that my greatest joy came from your worst day, and I know what a worst day is. So, don't think that I forget that. I know that day was so different for us. But she was confident, she knew that, this was the best thing. So she's at peace with it.
So what now for you? You have what looks like to anybody that sees you a sweet and perfect family, but in your heart that Graham is not there.
Right.
What is it like?
So he's always missing. I never think,
that you have 2 kids.
No,
It's
I
always, I
have
have 3 kids.
Yes.
I'm a boy mom, and I'm a girl
I'm not
mom.
parenting them all right now, but I do, and
How do you have permission? How do you allow yourself to have joy? How do you have joy, process joy while processing grief?
so I've had to come to a place where what I've learned, it's okay to have the worst sadness, the worst heartbreak, and still joy at the same time. And that me missing Graham and feeling that loss doesn't mean that I don't love the girls and I'm not grateful for them. Having fun with them doesn't mean that I'm forgetting about Graham. That you can have both of those things. And even in whatever situation, like thinking, well, my mom died 10 years ago. I should be over this by now. And, this tragic thing happened to me. I should be done. But there's some things that don't go away. And there will always be a hole. There will always be a loss. But that doesn't have to taint everything else that comes after it. That you can have that and still find joy at the same time. So, and ways that we remember Graham, so we talked about the hospital life, and through that we got really good at what do you need when you're staying in a hospital long term. You need earplugs, you need an eye mask, you need lotion, you need...
She's a little extra.
It's loud in there, y'all. It's bright. People will come in and turn the light on in the middle of the night because they gotta do something. You need a journal to write everything down that the doctors say, and the medicine and all this kind of stuff. So what we've done, and that the church has helped us do, is we have Teddy Graham boxes, is what we call it, and they're a box that once or twice a year, usually at Christmas now, everybody fills a box with those items, very practical things. Yes, very practical things. A teddy bear for the kid that's in the hospital, and a handwritten note that we're praying for them, that we know, because we were in the hospital on Thanksgiving, on Graham's first birthday, on Easter. He liked going in the hospital on holidays. So we know what it's like to be there during a time when everybody else is happy and everybody else is just living their life carefree, and you're in the worst place. And so that's a way that is really helpful for us, but then also to not forget and to give back. And we get so many messages from people who have gotten Graham boxes, that like just how much it impacted them, to know that somebody's thinking about them, and somebody cares, that because not everybody has the support system that we did, or we did, I guess. So we take the girls to the cemetery, change the flowers out. They play around. They think that's like the playground, the park. So
it's completely reverent.
Super serious. So we want that to be a part. We have Graham's pictures all over the house. We try to keep that alive. And they know about babies now, so whenever they see his pictures, they say, baby. So we're going to say, that's Graham. That's your brother, Graham. Whatever you say. Yeah. So, as they grow up, we don't want to, we never want to forget or, not respect that in ours. We still hang his stocking up at Christmas. I feel like that's one of the only times I see my whole family together. So, there's things like that we're only 3.5 years out. So who knows how it will evolve, but that's kind of where we're at now with our phase in life. So
Well, your family